One of the major difficulties in representing asylees seeking refugee status in the United States is the confusion between immigration and refugee status. There is a perception amongst the public that everyone wants to come to the United States because its streets are paved with gold, and that somehow we have the magic answer to success and happiness. We do have major groups of individuals seeking entry in the United States. Our immigration system is based on family and business considerations, and individuals have to qualify based on their family relationships to current U.S. citizens, or in some cases lawful permanent residents. Other individuals can obtain immigrant visas because of their business expertise, or perhaps their knowledge as a professor or a scientist that would be helpful to the United States economy. And Congress has enacted these laws to provide an orderly immigration system. When you put next to that this asylum law opportunity, it creates some confusion because individuals fleeing persecution often don't have the safety or the safe haven to go through the normal process and allow a person to wait online to further the immigration process. Added to that, given the tremendous poverty throughout the world, you have the media often talking about, quote, economic refugees, unquote. But if refugees are only defined by political or racial or national persecution or political opinions or membership in a social group, the economic side of the issue does not qualify one for refugee status. So our governments around the world have to face this very difficult analysis of immigrants, yes, who qualify based on the status of their particular nation's immigration law, or refugee status based on fear of persecution or past persecution that may have been visited upon them by their governments. It's very difficult in some cases to discern between the two. Does a government use poverty as a way of persecution? In apartheid in South Africa, if we take the blacks and put them off in the townships where they're poor and have no access to education or health care or even the basics of food and water, is that political persecution or is that mere poverty? Again, that makes it a very difficult call for judges and for leaders of society in the United States political situation of how to make those decisions. That makes it equally tough for institutions that are not-for-profits that want to represent refugees and want to represent immigrants, because, again, it's easy to try to paint a picture that someone has come to the United States because they're poor rather than that they've been persecuted, or that people don't want to wait online to pursue the normal immigration procedures, which sometimes, unfortunately, may take years to qualify and then have one's number come up so they're then able to process their immigrant status. All of these make very challenging discernment questions for not only the government, but for those agencies that are working on behalf of refugees. But it is a justice issue. In Christian terms, the Bible tells us to welcome the stranger like the native, for we were slaves in Egypt too. It's a story that's very uncomfortable for many in the United States to hear. We don't often associate ourselves with Pharaoh's slaves, but the biblical story is an important one for us to recall of why the Bible asks us to treat the stranger as a native. Because indeed, we all were at one time slaves in Egypt under Pharaoh's power. Understanding that is one way of understanding the justice issue involved in immigration. That does not necessarily mean that we have open borders and no rules or regulations. But it does call us to have a more fair process and to have a system that is not weighed down with inefficiencies and inconsistencies and a lack of process for individuals. That is an extremely tough burden, not only for the government, but again for agencies that are representing immigrants and refugees in these proceedings. Often they're understaffed, under-resourced, with many more clients than they can adequately or competently deal with. So there's a justice issue in how we present or how we allocate resources to work with individuals seeking the benefit of United States law. it's important to remember that Congress has established these procedures for refugees and for immigrants. Distinct and different, but nonetheless procedures. But the procedures themselves are ineffective if lawyers aren't available, if accredited representatives working for the agencies who are skilled in these areas of the law are too few, and if the system itself is so overburdened that families are often forced to wait years. Families are separated. Mothers who may have been persecuted in their homelands have to make the most horrendous decisions about going back to face more persecution, but also to watch their children grow up, or to spend years pursuing a remedy in the United States, separated from their children or their loved ones. And it makes it extremely difficult in working with those individuals, because ultimately it's their decision, but our inefficiencies and broken parts of our legal system make those decisions all the more difficult.